With the election getting closer, the runway to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has shortened, and a couple of big problems still stand out. Number one, no actual voters chose Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to replace Joe Biden, and no voters on either side of the aisle have yet heard what she might do if she won, certainly not in the way that they can trust what they're hearing. The second problem, and it's really much more than a problem, is that two people have had their eye on assassinating former President Trump. Donald Trump hasn't let it stop him, for that matter, even slow him down. But I don't think the country as a whole has really come to understand the reality of how close the Republican nominee has come twice to losing his life. The first time, a bullet grazed the side of his head. It could not have gotten any closer without taking him down. And then a second shooter in Florida lined up for 12 hours to get his shot at the former president. Had it not been for a new Secret Service agent with great eyesight, the second shooter would have been within a chip shot of shooting Donald Trump, even as he was playing golf. Now, I was a young boy in the third grade when President Kennedy was assassinated. I remember how it shook the country, but not just for days, but years. In fact, it's still shaking up many of us who remember it. Then in 1968, his brother, Robert Kennedy, was gunned down when he ran for president. Martin Luther King was assassinated that same year. Former President Ford was shot at, and President Ronald Reagan in 1981 was shot, almost killed. It goes without saying that everything about an assassination is a nightmare for the country, or any country that goes through it. These leaders represent the hopes and dreams of millions of people, and they have families as well. Yet our society has become so immune to tragedy, so rough around the edges with coarse behavior and trash talk, that one poll showed 3 out of 10 people would have preferred that Donald Trump was not just shot, but killed. That's repulsive and shocking. Can that really represent what we've come to in this great country? Well, in a moment, we're going to have the honor of being joined by an American leader who is more than concerned about where we're going. There she is, live and ready to go, the Honorable Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Senator, good to have you back with us, and thank you for joining us.
It's good to be with you. Thank you so much.
We're glad thank you. We're so glad that lawmakers like you have been front and center trying to get some answers out of the Secret Service, especially after that first assassination attempt on Donald Trump back in Butler, Pennsylvania. But I wasn't surprised, I must say sadly, when the bulk of the liberal media just began to brush off what happened within a few days. I want to know, have we gotten information, maybe you have and the rest of the public hasn't, that President Trump is going to be carefully protected by the Secret Service and those blunders won't happen again?
We have not gotten that information, Governor, and it's been really frustrating. As a matter of fact, we have more insight into what happened with the second assassination attempt than we still have about that first attempt and about the failings that are there. But of course, since Republicans control the House, they have been able to push to force the Secret Service to at least give a little bit of information. We do know that there are going to be some of the agents that were on the ground that day are going to be reprimanded. We do not have details on that. We still do not know where the failings were. We do not have specifics. And as I have continued to say to Acting Director Rowe, if you don't give us the information, then the rumor mill and the conspiracy theories are going to fill that void. So the sooner you can give us details, the better it is for the American people. Now, I sent a letter after the second shooting on that Monday, fired a letter off saying President Trump deserves to have the level of protection that he had while he was a sitting president. We know that that is not the case because the sheriff in his press conference after the second shooting, talked about the marked difference in the amount of security that was around President Trump while he was in office and what they are seeing today, even though they had said after the first attempt they were going to beef that up.
You know, the economy is uncertain. You never know whether your money's worth as much today as it was yesterday. It's one of the reasons I buy gold from American Hartford Gold. American Hartford Gold has earned a 5-star rating and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Be sure to tell them Mike Huckabee sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first qualifying order. Call 844-417-1010 or text Mike to 998899. You'll be glad you did business with American Hartford Gold. And that's what's troubling to us, Senator. We get a lot of noise from the Secret Service that, yes, he has full protection. Everything that he needs is there. But there's no evidence of it. And there wasn't any evidence of that when the shot was almost taken of him. Didn't quite get off the round, but he was almost assassinated while playing golf in Florida. And there was a big gaping hole in the security front there. At least we got a lot more information about what happened, who did it, when it happened, and the progression of things. But I remember you confronted the Secret Service director at that time, Kim Cheadle, during the Republican convention. She refused to talk to you, a sitting U.S. senator, to whom she is accountable. Now, she's accountable to all of us, but especially to someone who is elected to represent the people of America. And she brushed you off as if you might have been a reporter for a high school newspaper. I was shocked.
I think a lot of us were shocked. Senator Barrasso and I were really shocked. But as everyone has seen on that video, Governor, she had no intention of answering our questions. And of course, when we found out she was at the convention, we wanted to go talk with her because there'd been a phone call. They didn't take our questions. They closed the queue, said no more questions are in the queue, which was not accurate. So then when we approached her in her suite as she was hosting that cocktail party, she decided she didn't want to have a conversation or answer our questions. The point is this, as I told her then, there was an assassination attempt. The American people deserve to know. We deserve to know as we conduct oversight. But she was not interested in it. She ran away from us. She refused our questions and didn't want answers. And she had 6 bodyguards around her that day. I think that's probably more than President Trump had that preceding Saturday when the first assassination attempt took place.
It's hard for me watching polls come out day after day that show that President Trump and Kamala Harris are neck and neck, and that in some polls she leads President Trump. She's not answered a single question with any substance at all since she's been anointed as the Democrat nominee without getting a single vote. I'm scratching my head and trying to figure out, how could a person be taken seriously by half the American people not having received a vote? Do you trust the polls? And if not, how do we know where this thing is headed?
You know, I think that President Trump is going to perform better than what we are seeing in the polls. I really do. And I think the undecided vote is going to break toward him because people are concerned about the economy and they don't have faith in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to straighten out the economy. Even her Governor Walz, who is her VP nominee, on Saturday at a rally stood up there and said, we can't take 4 more years of this. Well, this has been brought to you by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And people are very concerned about the economy. They're very concerned about the border. They're concerned about fentanyl that is racing over that border and about gangs and crime in communities. All of that has gotten so much worse under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Plus, they watch Kamala Harris at a rally, and you know, Governor, it's just insulting when somebody has to read off a teleprompter to talk about what they believe. And then because they can't give an interview and talk about what they believe. And I think people are beginning to see that. They see her as scripted and rehearsed, and she can read it from the teleprompter and deliver her lines. But then when she has to dig deep into her philosophy of life and government and answer those questions in an interview, she struggles with that. And people are watching it. That's when all those word salads come up. And, anytime she's asked about inflation, it's, I grew up in a middle class family. I think the American people now can kind of recite that back to her.